I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Perseus Groups. We have 12 imprints, so we're a publisher. We're also a publishing services company through Constellation, Consortium, PGW, and PD. We distribute about and sell about 400 other publishers around the world. And I'm a co-founder of Constellation, our digital service, which is the back end behind Faber Factory, powered by Constellation, FFPC. And I've been doing really transformation to digital in media for about 25 years. I did it in professional publishing and in music and in newspapers as a consultant and now in publishing as a principal. So it's something that the process of value chain change and product innovation and process innovation in digital is something I spend a lot of time on. Why should we be focused on this? I mean, you wouldn't be here at a Digital Minds conference if you didn't feel this way, but my take is pick a reason. I won't read them, but there's a lot going on in this business more than just the digitization of books and of the delivery of them. There's 97 other reasons to be thinking about every part of the process of publishing and selling and consuming and sharing books. So the bottom line, we feel as both a publisher and a service provider is if you're standing still, you're falling behind. How should we think about discovery? I'm going to play with this metaphor a little bit. My COO, Joe Mangan, likes to say that the internet is very good for hunters and terrible for gatherers. If you know the title of the book you want and its author, it's really a solved problem. Everything else is very much up for grabs. Let's say you wanted to buy a book on Christopher Columbus. How to think about the problem. I work on Columbus Circle in New York City. I can look out my window, well, that's 1895, but I see Columbus Circle. And right there on the top of that sort of column there, that's actually Christopher Columbus. And the Columbus Circle has changed, but that statue's still there, and there's Columbus very, very far from us. Somebody that as Americans we talk about all the time. If I wanted to buy a book about him, it's kind of remote. A couple months ago in the fall, and if any of you were in New York, they started to do this thing to that statue, to that column, which none of us knew what it was for a while. Turns out it's a Japanese artist, and he goes around the world and finds public art that's too far away from people and tries to bring it closer. At the top of that scaffolding is a room, and that's the room. Now I can see Christopher Columbus. Now he's in the room with me. In fact, there's a bookshelf over there with some books on it. When I climbed up there, there was a book from Basic Books up there, and I was really happy. And I went like, who picked these books, right? That's the big curation question. What I wanted to say about this little piece of the Columbus Circle story is, if you went to, let's say, Amazon and typed the words Christopher Columbus, you get 12,602 results. Now, they're not all books that are titled Columbus, but they're certainly tagged that way. How you wade through, how we get closer to the topic, how we get that book in the room with us is an enormous unsolved problem, really, in this evolving digital space. And we really have a lot of work to do to get there. And the big twist I'm going to make, the big theme I'm going to beat to death here for the next 8 minutes is, if we want to address the problem of digital discovery, that means we actually have to be discoverers. We have to behave a lot like discoverers do, which means we have to have the right tools, we have to be brave, we have to sail into unknown waters and map things that aren't mapped, and that's our job, okay? And there's a bunch of stuff to explore that is not well mapped and improperly tooled that I've metaphorically named the Sea of Conversations, the coastline of context, understanding the digital natives, and the universe of big data. I'm going to take a minute on each of these, but each of them need new instruments. They need the equivalent of a marine chronometer and a good astrolabe and some other stuff from the Hornblower series I can't remember the name of. We need the right tools for social listening, which I'm going to talk to you about. We need to change the way we think about metadata, not just the information that traditional retailers have always asked to supply, but a whole bunch of other things that they haven't. We need assets to market these books that travel digitally, that weren't built for print and then adapted to digital, but in fact are built for digital. And we need a whole different set of tools around screen scraping and analytics of our books and other people's books in the marketplace. Otherwise, we have no idea what's happening. So the sea of conversations is vast between Facebook and Twitter, but also the semantic web and the comment sections of blogs. There's an enormous amount of conversation happening. And the problem with it is it's massive in volume, it's real time. You know, if you've got Google Alerts set for your authors and your titles, that is a terribly flat and unanalytic way to figure out what's going on. What you really need is are a set of tools that can tell you where the conversation is, what the conversation is, and how much of volume there is in real time so you can figure out what to do. We at Perseus have been looking at tools, that's actually the first marine chronometer, have been looking at tools that can do for discoverability in publishing what that did for mapping the world. And we've tested in the last 2 years 6 tools, the best 3 of which are these, Radiant 6, Cover Cake, and Crimson Hexagon. We're currently deep into 9 months now of a pilot with Crimson Hexagon. And what these tools allow you to do is find the conversations about books. I submit to you that whatever conversation is happening, either in a room or online, there's a book or more, or several books about it, and that group is a richer audience to present your book to. The people who've made the trek up to the top of that column to get in a room with Christopher Columbus, you know some things about them. They're in New York. You know, they might be interested in history. They might be interested in Columbus. They might be interested in public architecture. All of those things would help you present a book. You need the right tools to sift through those conversations in order to present the right books. You can also track sentiment. You can identify who the key influencers are, and not just the major media, but who are the sort of individuals or prosumers or folks who are loud and have large followings, but might not necessarily qualify as media, that are talking about either the book or the topic of the book. And you can find also who are the big amplifiers, who are the people that take stuff that's been written and either retweet it, amplify on it, and get it stirred. And we're really finding that there's a whole new way of thinking about comp titles now, where if you can find the right comp title, you can track where the conversations happened, what words were used, who the influencers were, not that A and B level media, but what the traditional PR people sometimes call, the C and D bloggers, but frankly, those are A and B bloggers. Those are the folks who are at the top of the heap of the informal conversation, and they're incredibly valuable. So these tools were not built for publishing. Radiant 6 was built for Fortune 500 companies to track their brands. We've bent them to do this job, but they're starting to pick up and realize that publishing is a market. In fact, we were, I think, the first publishing user for each of these tools, which, believe me, isn't fun. That sounds like pioneering. In fact, it becomes incredibly time-consuming and expensive. I would say 18 months on, much less expensive and much less time-consuming. The tools have gotten better. They're coming down in price. The biggest problem with using these is you have to change the way you work. You have to get editors and publicists and marketers and sales folks involved early, and they have to spend time a little differently than they're used to. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the coastline and context. That's actually, I'm moving from Christopher Columbus, who I guess was Italian and is interested to Americans, to this is actually Captain Cook's voyages. Here's a guy who basically sailed every coastline of every continent 200 years ago when there were no good maps. There he is with a map. The problem is, right now, we have a good map for the content of books. This book is about this. It's related to these subjects. We've got the, sort of a hyperlink model that says I can connect the content in this book to the content in this book and to other things. What we don't have, though, is the way that maps to things like user context, like knowing that we're here in this room and serving up the right books that way based on location. We know recommendation engines know what you've bought in the past, and they can make recommendations on it, but they don't know if you liked it, and they don't know what you bought it for. Was it a present? Who was it a present for? And so there's a huge, vast, unmapped set of contexts that marketers inside publishers really need to know in order to do a better job of serving up the right book at the right time. And that's starting to happen, but the tools for it are traditionally metadata. Those tools are in flux. The tools to incorporate user context, not just book context, into metadata are rudimentary, but they're coming. And when we have them, we'll be able to optimize the metadata better. One of the things we have found is that publishers the editors and the marketers sit down with the manuscript. They come up with what they think are the right book descriptions, often just by taking what's on the jacket. but they never test those to see if those are the words consumers really use when they talk about the subject. So we've been doing a lot of experimenting with what we call power words, which is running the book and its descriptions through a set of tools that run it up against consumer conversations and feed us back some kind of ranking or score around the words that we use. Because we find often that we've got experts using expert words to talk to expert audiences, and that's not the way consumers talk. So there's a lot to do there on that. And the challenge is, it's hard enough to keep up with the front list that you're publishing, much less to go back to the back list and rethink the words in light of consumer conversation. So that's tough. Understanding the natives. One of the things we really are spending a lot of time on is trying to understand what causes consumers to act online and what actions do they take. And this list is one that I've been building, and we all probably have our own, but consumers want to do things, and they do things, either physically or online, and the things that often motivate them are not, I'm going to buy this book, but something before that. Yes, I'm trying to connect this book to my, my mother, or I'm trying to collect all the XYZ in this series, or, in the game world, points. I'm competing. I'm assisting someone who's asked a question. I'm getting recognized for being the most active blogger in this space, or the person who's most knowledgeable. I'm looking for bargains, or I just want to explore. And a lot of the platforms that we all know about, they really optimize against these kinds of consumer behaviors. So one of the things you have to think about as a book marketer is, am I creating and providing the kinds of assets that connect to these motivations? The fact that I've got a first chapter excerpt and a thumbnail of the cover and some, jacket blurbs, and I'm throwing them into digital context, do they really play this way? And so there's a lot of work to do to build and become better at building the kind of assets that really travel socially and travel virally. And those are more often links than excerpts. They are more often images than words. Not that words aren't important, but images will open a door. They're often more personal or better contexted. They often have more humor or more grab. Even if you're writing a deep philosophical tome, you need something that gets people's attention and the door open. They're more often authentic from the writer or from the subject, and less from some third-party expert talking about it. So we have a lot of work to do, I think, as an industry to understand that we, instead of just adapting the materials that we've always had to this marketplace, we really ought to build materials that behave the way the world we live in now behaves. I'll just give you one example. We had a diet book by this woman named Kathy Freston, very skinny woman, who wrote a book called The Lean, and it was a 30-step book where every day there was one new step you could add, one more little thing you could do that would, if you adopted it as part of your habits, would change your life. And we did all the things you would normally do for a book like this, but we also did one more thing, which was we created these badges. They're little digital objects. Each one was around one step in this plan, and each one of them was really short, had a tiny little visual, and was shareable on Facebook, Twitter, or Pinterest. Because if you want to change your diet or quit smoking or make any lifestyle change, one of the things you do is you tell people. And nowadays we tell people by saying on Facebook, hey, but we don't want to advertise a product. So we don't say, I bought The Lean and I'm following this program. But a lot of people were very comfortable saying, I drank 8 glasses of water today, and posting that on Facebook, which then caused other people to comment on it or post to go, oh my God, I did that and I lost 10 pounds and my skin cleared up and I felt much better. These are assets built to travel. They're not that commercial. They're personal and social. They were a pain to build, but they behaved because they were spot on for the message of the book and the process of the book, and they were built for the kind of environment that consumers live in. So I'm going to try to bring this to a close without getting too detailed, but we're all going to have to get better at big data. All of this kind of work I'm talking about can build enormous databases of data internally that are both about the market and about our books. We've got a lot of work to do to have the right kinds of tools and approaches to make the most of that. We're spending a lot of time scraping sites daily to see keyword tags, sales rank, and other kinds of, and price, for example, and then dumping that into a database that allows us to do both alerting and analysis so we can take actions on titles in market, and that's sort of the tools at the bottom. And it's not just about data. If you're going to collect that data, then that means you actually have to have the right skills internally to make the most of them, and you have to be able to act in real time, which is something a lot of publishers who really have a planning model have challenges to do. Just to sort of wrap up, as a publisher, we find, and not just for ourselves, but for our 300 or 400 clients we are in a dialogue with all the time about their books, have a lot of choices on digital innovation, which include, do I do this myself, or should I do it, in collaboration with other players? Is it dangerous to be out in front on this? I would tell you that the social listening platform work has been expensive and time-consuming. It's taken a long time to get to something that starts to be worth what we're paying for it. I feel it's been helpful for us because we're now at a place where we really know how to take advantage of it, but it's more expensive than many publishers can afford. So being ahead of the pack, as Steve Jobs was ahead of the pack on the Newton, it was a very expensive failure until it wasn't, until it was an iPad. A lot of these tools we're talking about are an investment of either time or money, and both are costly. But even the tools that aren't expensive are time-consuming. And it often feels like a choice between being too early and being too late. By the time everybody has heard about it, everybody feels they're scrambling to catch up. So it's not easy. Amidst everything that's happening, the change in product form and new companies that are cropping up trying to be vendors to you, many of them exciting ones were just in the panel before me, you have to decide, am I just going to wait for the market to bring me tools that work, or am I going to lean in and play either in the inventing of them or in the betas of them or in the changing our own processes, which is another kind of innovation, to take advantage of them. So I will point out, as just to finish up, that it is not for the faint of heart to start spending your own money and time on being a discoverer. Many of the famous discoverers met very, very untimely ends. Even Captain Cook, died in Hawaii in a conflagration with the natives. And I feel like there's one set of other lessons that come from that. If you're going to be an innovator or try to lean into the change in the marketplace, I would suggest the following things. It's not just about following a map. If you're here today, you're hearing a lot of people's maps, but you should also be creating some. What coastline are you mapping? What new territory are you exploring? What's the part of your business, the part of your world you want to know better than other people? So be map creators, not just map followers. New tools are essential. They really couldn't explore the world without that marine chronometer. That was a technological advance. Social listening and some of these other platforms require that we all get comfortable with new tools. You're going to have to get more comfortable with failure. We've always had a comfort level with failure on the title selection, but we're going to have to be that way on process evolution as well. I point out that the Virginia company, entrepreneurial startups are often more effective than large enterprises on this. It's very exciting to me to see folks up on a stage like this, or at BEA or at Frankfurt, who are from outside the industry. I see more players who think that there's gold in the publishing business and are coming here with outside money and fresh thinking than I've seen in 35 years. I think it's fascinating that we are now in a business that venture capital and smart money wants to invest in. We should take that cue. And finally, it's helpful if the king and queen is supportive. If you're going to get out there in a boat and try and find the frontier, make sure the top of your organization, the chairman or the CEO, the executive committee, whoever, know what you're doing and understand that that the ROI isn't necessarily something you're going to measure today, like Thomas Edison, there's a 99% perspiration part of this thing. So that's the fast version of this, and I'll quote my namesake and say, if you're not making mistakes, I suggest you're not trying. And I urge you all to go out and make some mistakes, some new ones. Thank you.